A major shakeup for Senate Democrats. Senator Dick Durbin says he's retiring. The 80-year-old Illinois lawmaker, who's the #2 Senate Democrat, announcing Wednesday on X that he's not seeking another term in office.
The decision of whether to run for re-election has not been easy. I truly love the job of being United States Senator, but in my heart, I know it's time to pass the torch. So I'm announcing today that I will not be seeking re-election at the end of my term.
Let's bring in the Hill's national political reporter, Julia Manchester, to break it all down for us. Julia, thanks so much for joining us. Speculation has been swirling for months about what Durbin might decide to do here. He's 80 years old, first elected to the Senate in 1996. Did this announcement from him come as a surprise at all?
You know, I think there was a lot of chatter about whether or not he would retire, and it seemed that, all signs were certainly pointing to his retiring. We've seen a number of other Senate Democrats retire this year alone, particularly older members. And we know that Senator Durbin is definitely, an older member of the Senate. So I don't think it comes as a surprise. We were seeing he was lagging behind in fundraising. Sometimes that's a key sign that, a lawmaker is considering retirement. It also comes as you're seeing a lot of rising stars in the Senate get quite a bit of attention, including New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. You've also heard a lot of chatter about what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's own, path forward may be. He also is considered one of these senior older Democratic leaders. So I don't think it's necessarily a surprise, but certainly notable going into a midterm year.
Durbin's the Senate Democratic whip, the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee. What does his retirement mean for the party?
Well, like I said, there's going to definitely be, I think, a battle or at least discussions within the Senate caucus to see conference to see who replaces Durbin at that level, who would be the next in line. And we've heard a number of names, certainly younger senators being floated. So there's going to be a reshuffling of the leadership positions potentially. It also opens the door to a potentially very contentious primary in Illinois. Illinois is a solidly blue state, so whoever wins this primary will likely be the next senator representing Illinois, but it could be a complicated path to get there if it's going to be a crowded Democratic primary, and it seems like it very well could be.
You mentioned a primary fight. I'm sure there are a lot of Democrats in Illinois huddling right now amid this news from Durbin. What kind of primary contest is Durbin's retirement teeing up, and who are some names we might see jump in a race for a seat?
Yeah, so Congress, members Robin Kelly, Lauren Underwood, Raja Krishnanorthy, the Lieutenant Governor of Illinois. There's been a number of these names that have been floated, and if this is a crowded Senate primary, it will only be the latest in a number of crowded Democratic Senate primaries we're seeing, going into this midterm cycle. In Michigan, for example, we're seeing a very crowded Senate primary. And the difference between Illinois and Michigan, obviously, is that Illinois is a solidly blue state. But we know that some of these very brutal, ugly primary battles sometimes leaves the winner limping out, and they may, not be as strong in the general election. In Illinois, I don't think that's as big of a concern because it's not a swing state, but we will certainly be watching this contest. We know that Raja Krishnanorthy, for example, has raised quite a bit of money, I think, compared to the other potential contenders, so he's certainly one to watch.
Julia, you mentioned retirements. We've seen several Senate Democrats eyeing the exit. Senators Gary Peters, Tina Smith, Jeanne Shaheen, all saying in recent months they're not running again. How do these retirements affect the 2026 map? And are Democrats, is there hope of winning the Senate majority going to be changed at all with this retirement?
So I don't think Illinois necessarily affects the map because we do know that it's a solidly blue state. But for Michigan and for New Hampshire, for example, particularly for New Hampshire, Michigan was already in play, and I think New Hampshire was also in play, but Republicans say that Jeanne Shaheen stepping down emboldened them even more because it becomes an open seat, and you don't have as known of a commodity as Jeanne Shaheen running as an incumbent. So you have, essentially challengers coming in to run for these seats, and it's sort of, all bets are off. No one has that incumbent advantage. And I think that probably makes, in a state like Michigan or New Hampshire, the environment better for Republicans.
Julia Manchester, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.